We apologize for commencing late, and would start now. And our Director of Projects through Publicity, person of Mr. Ebenezer Akuriade, would continue from there. Thank you for your patience, and we appreciate our guests as well.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to AILF online conference. My name is Ebenezer Akuriade. I'm the Director of African Resource Leaders Foundation. And today's program have two distinguished panelists. By name is Blessing Olatunji, Matthew Femi Adedoyin, and our third panelist, who is who we are hoping to join us very soon, Ogunwale. The main theme of this online conference is the effect of the pandemic on academics. And we are hoping that all of our panelists today will be doing justice to this topic, coming from different angles. Blessing Olatunji is a media specialist. Matthew Femi Adedoyin is a psychologist and a trained. Me already with us, Oriyomi Ogunwale, already with us, and he is also technology person for his own technology focus. He is the founder of EduPlanner. So without much of our time, I also have my fellow be anchoring this session with us. So thank you very much for joining us. Those who are joining us live from Zoom and those who are joining us live from Facebook, welcome you all. We apologize for all the delays due to technical issues. So let's go straight into the program. Seeing most of us simultaneously from all the panelists. So I would like each of the panelists to first introduce themselves, give a brief about themselves, and tell us um, what are their expectations for this particular online conference. So let me start with Mr. Femi Adedoyin Matthew. Hello, can you hear me, Mr. Matthew?
Yes. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be on this platform.
Hello, Mr. Matthew.
It's always a pleasure. I can hear you. Can you hear me, sir?
Okay. Yeah, I can
yes,
hear
you can.
Loud and clear.
So I didn't get your last question. I don't know if it's only from my angle here. I can barely hear you. I don't know if it's from my end or it's the network.
I also think it's the network because I was just going to talk about the fact that it's touching and I could barely hear anything.
Okay.
I guess it's the network from his end. Can you hear now?
Okay. I can hear you, Mr. Jami. I can hear you.
Okay, I guess it's the network from Ebenezer's ends. And what he was saying was that we would like that our panelists at least give us a brief information about themselves, such that our audience would know, okay, this is the person we have on board.
Okay. So am I going first?
Yes, please, Mr. Matthew, go ahead.
My name is Matthew Femi Adedoyin. I work with Research Mind Company. We are a coaching therapy training firm that helps individual, family, and organization come to a place of newness. And we have been doing this for the past more than a decade now. And I personally work as a therapist, as a psychologist, and also on the side gig, educational consultant. I work with family, with any member of the family. If you're a parent, if you're a child, if you're a father, if you're a mother, if you're a teacher, as long as you belong to a family, I am your go-to guy when it comes to coaching and therapy. And one of the things I tell people is, you cannot meet me and come to a place of newness. It is certain that the first 5 minutes with me, something will change about you. I dispense light and damage ignorance anywhere I go. Thank you so much, Mr. Konde, for having me again on this platform. And I look forward to learning from all our panelists today.
Thank you, Mr. Matthew. We appreciate that brief introduction. And let's have Ms. Blessing Oladejoye now, and he's to come up and just give us a brief about herself. Ms. Blessing.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and
Good evening.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Blessing Oladejoye, and I run an online development platform, BONE Service, and our focus is on children, women, and persons with disabilities, because we understand that this set of people, this category of people are the vulnerable groups. They are underserved in the community and they are underreported. So as a media platform, we try to put much focus on them and try to put spotlight on their issues at all times. I'm very sure it's going to be a learning opportunity for me and also an opportunity to share at this meeting today. So it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate that. So let's have Mr. Obinyo Wale.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yomi Ogunwale. I'm the team lead for EduPlanner. EduPlanner is a civic organization that promotes accountability and transparency in the education sector. We try to ensure that public education funds work by ensuring that capital projects are actually implemented. And we have an initiative that we call Fix Public Schools, which is designed to actually ensure that abandoned schools in rural communities are attended to, they are prioritized for renovation by the state government. We're actually in 21 states presently. We try to work with communities to ensure that they can get the government to prioritize these needs. But what we are actually to do, our bigger picture on the long run is to ensure that most of the time, out of school children in Nigeria have a place of learning to go to. And so this is our mission, this is our goal on the long run. And I've looked at this session today, the effects of COVID-19 on education. I think it's a very wonderful topic and discussion for us to have. I've listened to the panelists also, and I'm very excited to be here. I know it's going to be a learning session for me also. I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yomi Ogunwale, for that introduction. Then we'll move on to the panel session. Like my colleague has mentioned earlier, we are looking at the effect of COVID on education, and now that the federal government has also announced that the school will be reopening, and some states are also following that the schools will be reopening temporarily for some set of people. So we feel that we should have a conversation around, okay, what should we do as stakeholders, from the parents, the teachers, the school owners, the government, the media as well, have a major stake as far as the opening of school is concerned, and also to analyze in a way to put the teachers and the school owners, particularly the educators, on their toes as to the challenge they are likely going to encounter, because we realize that the moment the COVID started, only the privileged were opportune to engage with learning platforms, while some do not have that privilege. So we want to look at some of the challenges or the effect that we have had and give suggested ways or solutions to going forward. So let me start with Ms. Blessing. Ms. Blessing, are you there? Okay, so We said prior to the pandemic at this present time, so what major roles would you say that the mainstream media has been able to play with regards to promoting educational content?
Thank you so much for that question. But like, I'm a media practitioner, and I would not want to say anything that would be like against the media in this life. But you know about content on media, on the media, traditional media, radio or TV, you understand that people tend to complain about the kind of content that gets the media space. Oftentimes you hear people saying, "Oh, even the society is not even rewarding education to a very large extent." So in this regard, and it's just because media organizations have to make money, they are for profit. So if they don't get maybe individuals or organizations that want to promote educational content on their platform, they definitely won't do it. It's not going to be like a CSR because of the fact that they need to generate income and generate more money. So prior to the pandemic, there are very, very, very few content on traditional media platforms regarding education. Without advertising for cowbell, we know about the cowbell, and it's even not like it goes always like that. It just something whenever this cowbell competition, and on radio also there are some classes. There could be some radio stories to educate children and all that. That was prior to the pandemic. But I think we might still get to that. We now saw how we could leverage on the traditional media platforms because of what the pandemic has caused, because of the closure of schools and all of those things. This just tells us that the things we need to be doing, we need to do, we also have been doing. We need to start doing them more right now. We need to focus more on education. By the time we're saying, okay, as media outreach, we're for profit, we want to ensure that whatever it is we're doing is generating income for the organization. We also need to ensure that it's also to the interest of the public. So prior to the pandemic, I would want to say that it's just very few media organizations that are doing content regarding education, that are providing educational content, and those contents are usually sponsored. So that's why they are not so much. They're not like music that everybody would want to watch. And I would tell you that is the reason so many people want to sponsor or advertise during when the music show is on because it gets more listenership or viewership at that particular point in time. So that is why it seems that traditional media do not have educational content. But if you see people trying to sponsor such on their platforms, why not? They would definitely accept it. So it's an eye opener, anyways. So EdTech organizations could also begin to think towards this direction, begin to use mainstream media platforms to promote and share educational content to people. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Blessing, for that insight. And let me just recap. You talk about the competition being held by a private organization, which happens to be Cowbell. Then some stories on radios, to educate students. Then talked about sponsorship of educational programs, yes, which happen to be perhaps CSR from corporate organizations. So thank you for that insight. We'll come back to you. Let's take Matthew. Matthew, sir, said when we talk about learning and psychology now, like you rightly mentioned earlier, which is part of what you do, does it have any relationship with mental health? Learning and psychology. Is there any relationship that has to do with mental health in that regard?
All right. Thank you again, Mr. Kombia and ARLF team for this platform. First, I would say that learning, most of the things we do in Nigerian institution is not learning. You can be teaching and your pupils or your students are not. We can only say learning has taken place when your students can articulately do what you have taught without supervision. So most of the things we do in Nigerian institutions is teach, and learning has not taken place. And the students just come, study to pass exam. So the reason why many kids in Nigerian institutions have problem with schooling is because learning is not taking place in the real sense of it. In a place where there's learning, you have little mental health issue. So the problem we have in our institution is that we teach and we put pressure on the brain and on the mind of the child, and no allowing learning take place. So the child is overwhelmed with the information coming into his head, and he's not making sense of what is being taught. There's no, everything is learning is abstract, and this starts from our primary school. There are two levels of for a child. Thinking cannot take place until the child clocks 12. That means a child only picks, does not think. In the layman language, I would say that we have peripheral thought and intellectual thought. So a child from a 0 to a 12 has only peripheral thoughts. That means whatever you are teaching the child just pick whatever you are teaching, cannot, if it's still abstract, cannot put intellect to it. So the child's intellectual thought is developed at the age of 12. It means that when you keep putting pressure on the child before the child clocks 12, the child begins to have issues with education, and the child keeps telling the parents, I don't want to go to school anymore. I don't want to school. I'm not interested in schooling, because we are overwhelming the mind of the child. We are putting pressure, intellectual pressure on a child that is supposed to be picking what is being taught and then seeing how to implement it, because it is abstract. So for example, you are teaching a child 1 + 1 and the child does not understand until you let the child know that, okay, 1 naira + 1 naira equals 2 naira. Naira is not abstract to the child, but 1 + 1 is an abstract term as far as the child is concerned. So the child will just pick 1 + 1 and say, my teacher said 1 + 1 is 2. The child does not know why 1 + 1 is 2. And because it is abstract, it puts pressure on the mind of a child and can lead to mental issue. And when we say mental issue, we are not talking about a child that have gone mad alone. That you are seeing a psychiatrist is not that you are mad. He's only saying that you are taking precaution to avoid that state, that level of insanity to come into you. So there are a lot of children in our primary and secondary education system that have serious mental issue because learning is not actually taking place in school. And it's not just public school issue, it's an issue in both private and public school. Many teachers do not know how to pass learning onto children. And because they don't know how to pass learning onto children, the brain of the child is overwhelmed. So like the brain can take in over 2 million bits of information. Over 2 million bits of information goes into the brain in milliseconds. Imagine 2 million bits of information going into the mind of the child in a millisecond. So the mind of the child begins to filter, begins to clear off those information, and begins to pick what is needed. So the mind of the child does 3 things: either distort the message, or delete the message, or generalize the message. So when message 2 million bits of information is coming in a millisecond, the mind of the child first of all deletes. What don't I need? So the teacher might be thinking he's saying something important. The mind of the child says, I do not need this thing because it is abstract. I do not understand it. So the mind of the child deletes that information. So the teacher will say that child is a lodo. He does not know what he's doing. Everything I have taught the child, no one he can remember. The brain of the child has deleted that information because his internal filter say, I do not need this thing right now because it is abstract. I cannot think about it right now. And it's a mental health issue. Also, the brain of the child can also distort the information. As I'm talking to every one of us here right now, by the time I ask Ebenezer, Ezekiel, Blessing, Mr. Guwale, Mr. Jamil to recap everything I've said, but by the time the information gets to the last person, everything has been distorted already because the brain, 2 million bits, as I'm talking to you, as you are in your room, 2 million bits of information is coming into your mind at the same time, in milliseconds. So before it gets to you, distortion has happened. So when you are teaching in a classroom and your pupil cannot accurately say what you're expecting to say, perhaps you have distorted it and have put it in its own words. So you say, this is what I said, this is what this one is saying. It's because distortion has happened in the mind of the child. or the mind of the child just generalize what you are saying. That means generalization is saying that the child just speaks everything you are saying and return back everything you are saying to you. And all of these things, if not well structured, if not well articulated, it can lead to mental health issue for the children. So teachers must understand that in the psychology of a child, your children pick what you're saying, and their mind or their brain pick this information in three ways. They either delete it or distort it or generalize it. So your goal is to make your children pick the most significant thing that is needed for that education, for that learning to take place. In your textbook, you have written a textbook of 5 pages. Out of that 5 pages, we do not need everything that is written. You as a teacher must have studied the textbook, pick what is necessary, that is significant to learning. And when you begin to pass it to these children, learning is taking place. So when learning is taking place, we have little mental health issue. It is when learning is not taking place, only teaching that is taking place, that mental health issue begins to spring up, and you see kids saying, I did not want to go to school. Or you see kids saying, I don't even know what they are doing, what they are teaching in that school. I tell a lot of people, I said, I was a brilliant student until I gained admission to University of Lagos. I was doing well in primary school and secondary school. When I got to University of Lagos, I was not doing it. I was seeing myself, and I was wondering what is happening to my educational line. I was not doing as I expected to be doing. It was when I left school that I realized that I was almost depressed. I was even running into depression. There was mental issue. I visited counselor a number of times because what I was doing in school, in university level, was not corresponding with what I was doing in primary and secondary school. And I realized that learning was not taking place. I was in the wrong course. I was in the wrong place. Instead of me to focus on things like counseling or psychology that will help me, I was doing computer science, and learning was not taking place because and it resulted to mental health issue for me. So when learning is taking place, proper learning, age-appropriate learning, there will be less of mental health issue for students. It is when only teaching and no learning is taking place that students begin to have mental health issue. And when I'm talking about mental health issue, I'm not talking about them being mad or being depressed. You just see that things are not just gelling, things are not just working for kids. So teachers must understand that children from age 0 to 12 can only pick what you're saying. They cannot think in the abstract. Once you begin to teach them all of these things and groom them, school is beyond teaching English and mathematics alone. You need to teach children how to think and not what to think. And when you begin to teach them how to think, the rate of mental health issue in kids reduces. And I hope I've answered your question, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Matthew, for that insight you gave. You talked about learning or taking place, when students cannot really assimilate what the teacher is teaching. And mostly that in Nigeria, we only teach, but then the impact, which is the learning instructions, not actually, and then that learning and teaching are two different things entirely as far as Nigeria school is concerned. And so there are problems with school, due to lack of learning, then pressure both on their mind and their brains as well. Then excess information, which is overwhelming information. Then talk about abstract learning, talk about intellectual, thought development at age 12 for upcoming child. Then talk about mental issues and brain with information. Then there was this key thing that you talked about that I actually noted. You talked about when message is being disseminated, either the person store that information, delete the information, or generalize the information. So thank you for that insight as well. So we'll come back to you anyway. So let's go to Mr. Oriyomi Ogunwale. Mr. Oriyomi Ogunwale, you've been active during COVID, collating data, ensuring that schools or state organized learning platform using technology that are available for a whole number of things. So what's your own observation with respect to the effect of learning? And you also organize an online platform, can you share that experience with us so that we even have an insight to, we're talking about the effect of COVID on education. now you work in that space using civic tech, and your organization is civic tech, but then you use tech to organize all of this. So can you give us an insight, with the experience that you have to see how we can actually understand how this thing has done there? We'll come back to other questions as we move on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Akonde. I think when COVID happened, nobody expected it, and even before now, we've been talking about 13.2 million out of school children. We spotlight of dilapidated schools, and there's also that talk of children not learning at all, which the last speaker has addressed, I think, in-depthly again, which is something I learned one or two from that. And but what's important is how COVID-19 has changed everything. And I think somebody said it took us into the future, which is that before now, if anybody had talked about Zoom learning, if anybody had talked about online learning, we would have still shied away from it and say, oh, we're still into the future. But when COVID happened, it brought us closer. And you could see that even as an organization.
Disadvantage of COVID-19, absolutely clueless dumb people like you start chatting shit on online forums and think you can get away with it. Like, what are you even doing? Like, look at your face, bro. You have the funniest face I've ever seen. Look at that. Bruh, look at your
Story, you are muted. Please unmute.
Okay.
Sorry for that.
Yeah, I think it was the ACA. So
yes. So I guess we are not going to admit any other person again. We just leave it, let people go to Facebook.
Just what you do is to enable waiting room. So
yes,
that when
I was actually the one that admitted him was in the waiting room.
Okay. So like I was saying earlier, when COVID happened, we as an organization looked at one of those things we could do to actually reach out to children who were at home. Everything happened March 19th. The federal government asked all schools to be closed. So it begs the question of how do we reach these kids? These kids have not been learning before. And one of those things that we observed was that kids were not learning. They were at home, and all they just do every day is to play, and which makes them to forget a lot of these things they've learned in the time past. So I think what a lot of parents resorted to and school management was online learning, Zoom learning. So the federal government also through the Federal Ministry of Education then asked them that they develop a plan that could enable state governments to organize digital learning, which is radio and TV, and which was also something that we monitored across the 36 states. And I think as of May 23, only 21 states out of 36 have started online learning. I'm sorry, digital learning for their children. It's just radio learning done for 3 days, and maybe sometimes TV. I think Lagos State government did a good job in that path. They could have done better. But what we further discover is the challenge of electricity, which is not making kids to learn, and there's a challenge of some parents not even being able to afford radio that kids could use to learn. So those are some of those discoveries that we made. But also going down the line is you look at how it affected private schools. When you look at private schools, they pivoted into online learning. Parents were paying through their nose to actually get their kids to learn, paying for internet data, getting laptop, getting gadgets, ensuring that there was electricity. And this put a lot of strain on the education sector at this time. They also look at the part of the teachers themselves. The teachers were not paid, and I don't know if any one of us here saw that video of a teacher that was crying. That the video was posted on the internet, and I know something was done for him. But that's a story of a lot of teachers at this time, especially those that are working in private schools. So COVID has actually made a lot of things to happen. It's brought up a lot of pain. brought up a lot of disappointment. And the government strategy towards education has also been very poor at this time. But one thing that we then begin to look at is what is life after COVID. There are actually like 13 million out of school children now. How many students will be able to return back to the classroom, especially now that we are talking about social distancing? You are looking at the school that is dilapidated before. We followed up on the school, I think 2 weeks ago, where 1,080 students have to manage one block of classroom. And now, yes, yeah, one block of classroom that contains just 8 classrooms. One block, that's 8 classrooms. And that is where 1,080 students attend in Ikorodu here in Lagos. So how do you practice social distancing in that kind of situation? There are no wash facilities for them to wash their hands. How do you monitor? So those are the challenges that you see in the education sector. And with the number of dilapidated public schools that we have, obviously we cannot practice social distancing at this stage. Do we return those kids home, which ultimately increases the number of half of school children? And when you look at the federal government itself, it has not been sincere when they ask schools to prepare for resumption. Have they released funds to support schools to provide health facilities that they can use to test these students? Are schools equipped? Have state governors built more schools for them to actually take care of social distancing in the classroom? How do we protect that? These are some of the challenges, and these are the bigger effects, effect of COVID-19 on education at this time. And for me, I think it's sad on the part of the federal government, because they're not taking the bull by the horn. And it's just how we continue to neglect our issues and continue to shy away from them. And until they are resolved, we might not be able to do much when it comes to education. For me, education is always about getting the basics right. We need to get the basics right. When we talk about education, sometimes we focus on Lagos too much, but there are other parts. There's Bauchi, there's Sokoto, there's Abia, there's Delta. So there are other states to consider, and we must begin to look at this bigger picture and how we can reach them. So for these kids now, we just have to do more. I hope with this discussion we are having today, something is being done more, even beyond this discussion, to reach out to kids who have been affected by COVID-19 during this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williami, for that insight. In fact, what caught my attention was when you gave a data of 1,080 students, in a block of in a building and 8 classrooms. And I was wondering, now that the school are reopening, how will the school be able to manage such a crowd and in that space for students who are resuming back to school? But then we would come back to that. So let's take another round of questions now. So, okay, Miss Blessing. Okay, let's look at this again. He said, in what ways do you think the mainstream media can promote learning, considering the rate of distractions young people have to deal with in this period? Because people are not learning and they have access to gadgets, internet. People have taken to pornography, all sorts of things. People have taken to watching films rather than engaging in learning opportunities. But then the media as well, have also pushed more information about politics and other things that, for those categories, they feel that, okay, at least we need to engage our time with something. So what do you think, at least?
Thank you so much, Mr. Kongbe. Before I respond to that question, I want to say something, just like in response to what our last speaker said. He said most times he tries to focus on Lagos, as if everything is like much attention. Lagos get much attention, but I would like to say that while Lagos gets much attention, we still have some informal settlements, some slum communities in Lagos State, and where so much attention needs to be paid into. There was a report I did, and during the e-learning, when schools state had to switch to e-learning, And I could see some people, just like you rightly mentioned, families that cannot even afford to buy radio. So at that particular point in time, even when there is opportunity to learn, they can't even benefit from it because they have been deprived of the opportunity to learn because they can't even get radio at that particular point in time. So that's in Lagos State. They can't even access radio. They don't can't even e-learning or Zoom learning and all of those things is not even there. Even electricity to even turn on the TV to watch on LTV or other channels when things are ongoing on TV, they can't even access all of that. So if there are enough resources or capacity, I think it would be ideal to focus on other areas also. It would be good to focus on other parts of the country, just not just saying, okay, this place is okay, this place is fine. There are issues and there will definitely be issues. So back to my question, there are a whole lot of distractions out there. And when we're talking about what the mainstream media can do, I think much responsibility also lies on the parents. Like I rightly mentioned initially, media houses want to make money, they want to make profit. We can see the outburst that came with Big Brother Niger when it was going to be aired. The minister NBC said we're going to ban it, so it won't air and all of those things. But we saw that it couldn't really stand. It couldn't really hold water, and that's because if you ever watch it for once, see the kind of advertisements that they are placed on that content, and see how much more is being generated. So a child who is at home, who is not watching anything, who has not been going to school, finds it easy to just relax and just watch Big Brother Nigeria and just cross legs. So while the media is trying to say, okay, we need to do certain things to ensure that children keep learning during the closure of schools, they also want to ensure that they are making money because that is their main thing. They need to feed their pay their staff, um, buy fuel in their generators to continue operation. And we also know that this pandemic has also affected the media also because adverts stopped coming in, so many at the initial stage during the total lockdown, so many people lost their jobs. Some people were made to go on compulsory leave without pay. So many things happened. So the media too is also watching. Just like I said, every sector of the society has been affected by the pandemic. So what the mainstream media can do in this regard to ensure that children continue learning despite the distraction is to in what way they can do, in any way they can do, ensure that they reel out content that has to do with education. And I'm sure that by the time all these education content are even out with the children, the supposed beneficiary, the students will then tune to it, will then subscribe to it. So these are key questions these are key questions that we really need to actually answer and take note of. I think I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Blessing, for that insight as well. So, thank you. We appreciate that. Mr. Yes, question.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, okay. Thank you for the knowledge here so far. I'm really learning here. The next set of question is this. We at least we have agreed that in a way, the current pandemic has altered our pattern of learning and teaching. And developed countries like France, Belgium, and the likes, they are already reopening schools now. And we have some states here like Lagos, Lagos and the likes, also trying as much as possible to reopen. Now, the point is this: the post-COVID stuff. Now, how are we preparing as a country to really integrate ourselves again back to normalcy? So let us look at it from the school administration, from students, from parents, media and the likes. So the question is actually for every one of us. What are preparation for the post-COVID? So maybe Mr. Matthew Adedoyin can go first.
All right. You're asking what is our preparation for post-COVID, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're
okay,
right,
sir. First of all, when it comes to education, everybody is a stakeholder. The government, the parents, and the kids themselves. Everybody is a stakeholder when it comes to education. Like Blessing and Oriyomi said, the world has changed, and COVID has taken us to the future rapidly. We are walking slowly, and COVID decided to say, okay, guys, let's go fast. The future is here. And we must understand that this new normal that we have been into, it has come to stay. Very soon, we will have a school system that they will not congregate physically anymore, that everything will be done. It is existing, but it will start coming into Nigeria. School like Middlewall, for example. The moment the federal government announced that there will be closure of school, Middlewall did not even wait for federal government's day. Middlewall closed the following day because they put structure on ground to go online. Middlewall, they wrote their exam online. They did everything online. As I'm talking to you, they finished their what's it called? Third term online. Middlewall is currently on third term break as I'm talking to you. That means even if school resumes, Middlewall is on break because they have strategized and structured everything to go online. So first, I would say that our Nigerian government, they don't even know what they are doing when it comes to post-COVID. We just want to return to school and do everything as it used to be. Like the school in Ikorodu, that has 1,080 people for eight blocks of classroom. That is ridiculous. It means there will not be social distancing. I'm not sure there is water for washing of hands. I'm not sure the mask is readily available for the kids. Let's also look at children. You will send your child to school with his own mask, and your child will come back home with another person's mask. And it's because your child, to them, it's fun. Don't also forget that WHO and medical practitioners say children less than the age of 6 cannot use masks. It means that they are even at the risk of catching COVID than people that are wearing masks. So if children less than the age of 6 cannot be using masks, according to medical practitioners and WHO, it means that there must be provision made for these children. And social distancing is very key. So our government, when it comes to public schools are not ready at all for post-COVID education. That's for physical meetings. Let's also come to online meeting. How many of the parents in public school can afford an Android phone that will allow their kids to learn via Zoom? I'll give an example. I consult for a private school, and for a particular time, I was asked to resume in the school every day to monitor their affairs for one particular term. And there was a topic on emailing in one of their primary 5 scheme of work, that how to use email and all of that. The teacher taught them how to use email. So they came to my office, and I told the teacher, beyond teaching them, why don't you just say, open an email for yourself? And I know Google cannot allow children less than the age of 13 to open email. Get your parent to open an email for you, and use that email to send a mail to your teacher that, hello, Mrs. So, I have opened my first email. This is my first message to you. Did you know that out of 15 kids in that classroom, only one child did that assignment? When the parents of those kids were invited, they said, we are at school now, we are paying you. Why would we be disturbing ourselves on open email address? They don't need to open email address now. It means that even the parents are not even ready for what is coming. They didn't even know that there will be COVID. When we say the children should be exposed to email address and all of those, even the parents are not ready. These are parents that are rich. I mean, these are parents that are commissioners, that are civil servants in government offices. And yet, out of 15, only one was able to do that assignment because the parents were not ready. So if government is not prepared, how prepared are we as the parents for post-COVID education? It means that learning won't just be physical, there will be online learning. This school that I was consulting for also, they organized a WhatsApp and a Zoom class for their kids to register. You won't believe that since school was locked down to the end of to this particular time I'm talking to you, out of over 100 parents, only 10 parents showed interest in online learning. The rest said they are okay with the physical learning, that they will bring homeschool teachers to come and be teaching there because online learning, they don't think the children are learning online. They have forgotten that very soon, like I always tell people, paper will be very expensive. We have asked people to stop cutting trees. It means that when we stop cutting trees, there will not be paper again. And when there's no paper again, it means that we are going to go into digital learning. So if paper will become the commodity of the rich, or paper will only be seen in the museum, Mr. Ebenezer, Ezekiel, your son and your daughter, my daughter will be seeing paper in museum. They will not be seeing paper physically anymore because we have stopped cutting trees. And if there's no more paper, it means that we have to accept digital learning. And if you are accepting digital learning, parents must start preparing now for this system of education. And our parents are not ready. Even the rich, I'm not talking about the poor or the average. I'm talking about the rich. They are not ready for this new development. My little cousin in Canada, one day was on phone with me and was screaming, say, Uncle, we are going paperless. We are going paperless. I said, what do you mean I are going paperless? This girl is in kindergarten. They are introducing them to tab. The school is providing tab for them to learn. It means that their parents have no choice than to embrace it. So the parents that we have are not even ready to embrace newness that is coming. They are not ready to embrace the new normal. And if they are not ready to embrace the new normal, it means we still have a long way to go. First, the government is not prepared. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Matthew. Okay, thank you very much. Let's hear Miss Blessing Oladujoye. Let's hear your view, the preparation from the from the mainstream media. How are they trying to orient the students, the parents that would release their children to go to school? What's the education on how to prevent themselves during this period?
Yeah, on a lighter note, I just want to mention that I feel that I am the only one who has not been saying so much. That's actually on a lighter note. I feel like, okay, so other people have been saying so
Don't mind Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin is a talker. Don't mind him. Okay, let's.
That was just on a lighter note, anyways. So regarding to your question, which Mr. Matthew responded to, and what you're asking me, I just want to sum it up. And in preparation for post-COVID-19, I want to say that it's a post-COVID era already. If you like to know, because economies are reopening, international flights are reopening, and schools, even in Lagos, are going to reopen. But what is key for us? I will just setting a date to say, okay, schools reopen so date. What are those facilities that have been put in place even ahead of school resumption? So do we have so far, at least I've heard in the news a couple of times where you see some compliance officers from the Ministry of Health or Ministry of Environment going to different hotels, going to different centers to check the level of compliance and see, okay, if they're wearing their face mask, if they're doing the necessary things they needed to do to ensure that they are keeping, they are complying to all the safety regulations of COVID-19. So now looking at Lagos State, we have how many districts? 6, am I right? 6 education districts.
Yes.
And now imagine how many schools, public schools we have across Lagos State. Imagine the number of private schools that we have in Lagos State. And there are some private schools that are not even up to standard. Imagine all of those things. So how are we going to ensure that certain facilities are put in place? How are we going to ensure that certain facilities are put in place in all of those schools? The wash facilities, water, sanitation, and hygiene in those schools, how are they? Are they from even before COVID? Now that we say, okay, school, since the lockdown started, nobody was going to school. All of those things were not put in place. Okay, so students resume. Are these things put in place ahead of resumption? September 21 is just around the corner. And all of this is what is going to happen. And on the part of the parents, okay, you want parents to resume, you want your children to get back to school at this particular point in time. Before the school resumption, while they are at home, are they maintain doing all of those safety measures? Are you telling them to wash their hands regularly? Are you telling them to use their nose mask? And now remember, even the issue of face mask, if I should wear face mask for up to 20 minutes, it chokes me. Now imagine a child. Will a child be able to wear that for a very long time in school? Okay, this person, we've had reports, we know the media reports all of these things. You see schools whereby there are no classrooms or they are learning under the tree, even where there are classrooms, maybe children are sitting on the bare floor. They are not even learning in a conducive environment. And we understand that at this time, children need to sit separately. There needs to be enough spacing. All of these things need to be put in place before saying September 21 resume. We understand that yes, schools need to resume, children need to get back to school, but have we done the right thing even ahead of all of these things? So how does the media come in this regard? What the media can do is just to sensitize the parents. Okay, as parents, you've been told to do this, you need to do this more. Even the government does not even advise children to wear face masks because of their health. And we know that these children, their immune system is not even as strong as it could be, apart from those newborns that. And so all of these things are even things we should look at. During those who are writing WAEC right now, we realize that in some states, some people contracted COVID-19. And those are just few students that they were divided into different, maybe imagine 50 students are just writing WAEC in this school. They were able to practice the physical distancing very well. Now imagine that all students are resuming at the same time. As an individual, I would have advocated for maybe gradual reopening of schools. Okay, we've done SS3 and SS3 because they had exams. Can we start with, okay, let's see what will happen to SS2 and SS1? Do you understand? Then maybe much later, let's start with those higher classes that can take care of themselves. I was watching a skit recently, and the boy got back to the house. When the boy got back to the house, the boy was wearing a different face mask. The mother was like, "But this was not the face mask you wore when you were leaving the house." Oh, mommy, and so she wore a different one. I like it, and I had to give it to Tunji, and Tunji gave it to Benga.
Wow.
So even if the was infected at that particular point in time, we can see that. And so at this point, it's not just the media will say our own. But these are key issues that the government needs to address, and the parents also need to look into.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Ogunwale, let's hear your view. We have countries like France are now shutting some schools down already. So now, in case of a surge, do we have all what it takes to curtail surge? Or is it the best decision government should make at this point in time, looking at our level of preparedness, the facility? Is it the best decision to make at this point in time? Mr. Ogunwale, are you with me? Hello, Mr. Ogunwale. Hello, Mr. Ogunwale. Okay. If you can't get Mr. Ogunwale, please, Matt Adedoyin, can you respond to that? Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Okay, sir. Ezekiel Akinade.
I must say, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. You can go on, sir. You can go on, sir. I can hear you. You can go on.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I was saying, I think we are all Nigerians, and for me, I like to call it speed is speed. And the truth we all know is that the government wishes to wish away COVID-19, and I think it's so sad. If you follow the news, you see it has been spent on COVID-19, even in emergency whooping some so far that are not accountable. But with that being said, when the schools reopening were being discussed, 10 million naira was needed to support school in terms of getting health facilities, especially for the the WAEC exams. And it's sad that the federal government still found a way to renege on that responsibility. The truth is, whatever we are going to talk about schools reopening, it's about money, because eventually you need to buy health gadgets, you need to practice social distancing, you need to fumigate the classrooms. And the key question is the federal government committed? It's about commitment now. Whenever we want to say we want to reopen, it's about commitment. Whether it's September 21, whether it's at the latter date, it's about commitment. So it begs the question: Are they going to be committed to providing this for schools to reopen? So then we can then go into what we call in case there is a surge. How do we know if there is a surge? If we look at NCDC data these days, it's not much anymore. So I think maybe Blessing can address this later about the reporting of COVID-19 cases in Nigeria, if we can actually hold out to water. But beyond that, I don't think at this point that Nigeria is even ready to deal with any surge. If it ever happens, or if it is being reported, because you can only know what a surge when it is reported. If it is not reported, then technically you cannot know, and it might be sad that people might be suffering underneath. So it's some of those things that we need to look at. Nigeria is not dealing with. Nigeria didn't deal with COVID-19. Nigeria schools reopening. Nigeria cannot deal with a surge, and that I can say. Maybe to some extent you might pick maybe Lagos State to say, okay, they want to do one or two things. Even Lagos State has 1,732 public schools. Do you understand? So how many have they? For example, all they did when they wanted to do fumigation was to take a water tanker to the compound of the school and spray around, and that was fumigation for them. In Plateau State, for example, that we are monitoring, you see that they just did some fumigation in some classes. You have about 22 classes, you are fumigating like 6. You say that's all the reagents could take care of. At the end of the day, it was now discussion of there were not enough chairs and tables that children were going to sit down in the classroom. So the truth is, we are not ready. We want to go back to normal, which I feel maybe, since we cannot take care of ourselves, let's go back. But to say if there is a surge, Nigeria cannot take care of it. That's not. We are far from that. So I think that's my opinion.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This will be a last round of questions because of our time. So, Mr. Matthew, Mr. Ogunwale said that we are not ready, but now the government has decided that we are going back to school. So, what would be your advice for students in case they are watching us? What would be your advice for the parents in case they are watching us? What would be your advice to as for them, as we have no option than to go to school? Maybe the other option is to stay at home, but definitely we can't take that as our option. So, what is your advice for parents and for students, and also maybe for government?
Me, for parents for me, I think going back, we are not ready actually, and so going back to school is a very wrong move. But since we are going back to school,
exactly,
this is what I'm going to say to parents. Since we are going back to school, this is what I'm going to say to the parents and the kids. See, government is saying your life is in your hand right now. That's what government is actually saying. Your life is in your hand. So protect your children as much as you can. Now, orient your children, orient them, give them the lecture that they need to know. That, hey, you are going back to school. We are not saying be paranoid, but be as cautious as possible. Beyond government, then the school authorities now should not be humane. Put structures in place, public school, private school, put structure in place. Make sure that there's a running water appropriately, even if it's in a mediocrity level, make sure it is in place. Then make sure that you can do the best that you can with what you have. What you have, and make sure that you are putting precaution in place. Parents should train their children. Children should be able to adhere to necessary precautions, so that if government is not taking responsibility, you take responsibility for yourself. in Nigeria, we are used to taking responsibility. We provide our water, we provide our life, we provide everything. So just go back to school with that mentality that I am taking responsibility for my life and I'm taking responsibility for the other kids. If the other kid is coming to hug me, my responsibility say, I love you so much that I don't want you to get infected. So stay in your lane, let me stay in my lane. That is us taking responsibility. So parents should train their children to take responsibility, and why also taking responsibility. And when you know that you have forgotten yourself, you have played at all people, immediately go and get your hand washed, take necessary precautions. Also, make sure that you are learning as much as you can in school, because learning has changed, things have changed. Go online and learn as much. Parents should go online and do enough research that they need to do, because government is saying your life is in your hand and you have to be responsible for what is in your hand right now. I think that's my advice for parents. Train your children, tell them to take responsibility, and I think we'll be able to manage. We'll be able to manage with that.
Okay. Mr. Ogunwale. So, what is your advice? Now, government is asking us to go back to school, asking us to release our children to go back to school, those in higher institute of learning to go back to school. What is your advice for students that are going back to school? What's your advice for parents? Because I can tell you that there's a much apprehension on the part of the parents. They are scared. We are scared. I am scared. I have 2 children, and allowing them to go to school, it is scary. So, what's your advice for people like us, both for the parents and for the children?
Thank you very much for that question. I don't think you are scared. You can't be as scared as the children in public schools, because I know you probably be sending them to private schools. So if you are scared, here's my advice for you: go to your school on Monday, meet with the owner, meet with the principal, meet with the teacher, and say, "This is my child, though." They must not contract COVID, and I think they will do a lot of job. But coming to the average Nigerian, and I think it's hard on our part that we when I was listening to Mr. Femi Adedoyin speak earlier, I was talking about managing, and one thing that struck me again, that we are reducing the bar, we're reducing the bar more in terms of demanding service delivery from government. And but what can we do at this point is to hold ourselves together, which I like his point about taking responsibility. We just have to, like, at this point, I think one important issue that we need to point out to kids is, I think, the issue of face mask, in not exchanging, in not sharing with anybody. Your face mask is like your book now. It's personal to use, like your textbook is very, very personal with you. You don't share it with anybody. I think one of those salient points that we need to do. Then one other thing that I think for parents that they can do is that they should take out time. They should take out time for mothers who can accompany kids to school. They should take out time to visit the schools and ask questions about where are the learning facilities, where are the health facilities, are you social distancing, are you practicing blended learning, are you going to be keeping half of the population of the kids in the classroom? I think at this point it's all about parents now. Parents must be on their foot and check intermittently, not just the first day at school alone. You can check in anytime. It's your school, it's your child's school. You can go there and say, this is about their health. It's not just about academics anymore now. It's about their health, and they need to, go into the classroom, see the measures being put in place by school authorities. Because if those measures are not put in place, then sincerely, if your kid can practice the mask thing, then fine. If not, I beg to differ. Keep your kid at home till everything is normalized a little. It's better you protect yourself than having to contract COVID-19. I know when these kids get it, you might not get it early enough, and that might then mean that they might be transmitting it to parents themselves. So it's important that we get these kids to know, and I think we sensitize kids, like Mr. Femi has said. Let's ensure that parents go into these schools and also monitor not just the first day of resumption, but at any time you're on stage, just go there, visit them, and like we say, we keep managing and we keep praying to God, and maybe
Thank you very much.
eventually COVID will
Thank you
pass
very
us
much.
by.
Before I go to Ms. Blessing, Mr. Matthew is actually saying something about child policy, right, or whatever like that. Can you come online and just say something little on that? Child protection.
I'm saying that, yeah, I'm saying that a lot of schools do not have child protection policy already, especially public school. There's no child protection policy. I think Lagos State government has the Women Affairs has child protection policy, but I'm not sure whether they've shared it across schools. But every school, one of the things I do before I enroll my daughter in a school, the first thing I ask the school is, let me see your child protection policy. How am I sure that my child is safe in your school? How am I sure that my child will not be raped? How am I sure that my child will not be assaulted by your teachers and all of that? That was the first question. That answer is more important to me than the learning my child wants to get in your school. So we should review our child protection policy.
Mr. Femi,
yes.
Mr. Matthew, do you know that a lot of us are not aware of that? A lot of parents are not aware of that.
Wow, interesting.
Yes.
Yes. There should be any organization that
child protection policy in schools. Seriously.
Wow. Mr. Femi, please go.
I'm sure. So a lot. In fact, churches. Before I put my child in the children department in church, I ask the church, what is your child protection policy? If the church does not have it, my child will be with me inside the church. I cannot leave my child with somebody that is not trained to protect my child. Because when assault or any abuse happens to my child, it is my responsibility. It's not the responsibility of the church anymore. Yes. And so I need to know I need to know the person I'm going to sue if anything happened to my daughter or anything happened to my son. So most schools do not have it, and private schools, over the years, I have been implementing it for few private schools in Lagos, in Delta, and in Port Harcourt. But many schools still do not have it. So we need to let schools to know that child protection policy is very important. And so we need to add the reality of COVID-19 to that.
Yeah, exactly.
If my child comes to your school and contracts COVID-19 in your school, you will take responsibility for the damages and all of that. And so that the school owners and the teachers will train their staff to become the people that will take care of these children. And that will help us save our children a lot. And we should sensitize our children as much as possible. While, in fact, there's a school I consulted for. One of the things that have been attracting parents to bring their children to that school is the child protection policy. We deliberately put it at the gate of the school. When you are passing on the street of the school, the first thing you will see is the child protection policy listed down, and the repercussion of teachers, the consequences for teachers that do not follow that policy. That child protection policy also covers the parents. This is what you need to know about protecting your children. This is our own responsibility as a school. This is the responsibility of the class teacher in protecting your children. So if you fail in this regard, you have the right to sue us. And if you fail in your own regard, you have the right to report you to the government. I remember a parent that flogged the child at the back, that there was injury all over the child's back. We took the child to the police station. The parent of the child was arrested. And we thought the parent would leave the school. The man eventually came back and apologized and said he was actually happy that he was arrested. He paid the fine. And that's what child protection policy does it makes everybody accountable. So
thank you for that insight. Thank you for that insight, Mr. Matthew. Thank you for that insight. That's very good.
Online, Lagos State government has a comprehensive child development policy that's online. You can download Lagos State government and go through it, and you can begin to create for schools.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you very much, Mr. Matthew. So, Ms. Blessing, on the last note, what can we do in terms of sensitization or okay, we have organizations like National Orientation Agency, and you see, what can we do between now and resumption in terms of information, in terms of educating the students about how to prevent themselves against this contraction of COVID? What can we do between now and resumption? Ms. Blessing, are you online? Hello, Ms. Blessing.
I'm here.
Okay, good. Good. Do you hear my question?
No, please.
Okay, I said that what can we do between now and the resumption in terms of disseminating information as regard prevention of COVID. Now, students are going back to school. There's no doubt about that because government has made their decision. So now we have organizations like National Orientation Agency. What are they doing? What is media doing? Or what can we do between now and resumption to ensure that we minimize the spread of COVID-19? Don't worry, we can see
sorry,
you.
my light is off. Okay,
go on.
Prior to now, we know that so many sensitization messages have been ongoing across various social media platforms, online, offline, leaflets, so many things. Even a newborn baby, I'm very sure will be aware that there is COVID out there.
Okay, but that's what we are talking about here now.
Yeah,
prevention.
Yes.
How do we prevent ourselves and especially the students?
What I would just say is more there's need for more efforts to be put in all of those things. Okay, maybe we are doing one before, we need to triple our efforts so that all those people can be reached. National Orientation Agency, like you rightly mentioned, I, as an individual, I'm not aware of any public campaign that NOAA has been able to do in that regard. And it seems so much that NOAA is more related to election. It's only when election is around the corner, maybe because there's more funds for that. But I'm privy to NACOPO website is like the funds released for COVID-19 intervention program. So there was a particular one of those are actually subject to questioning, like how come so much was spent on all of those things regarding COVID-19 issues. You know, it was emergency response. So there were so many and several procurements that were made during that era, during that period. And people were asking questions, how come this was done? Why was that done? And all of those things. So I saw one line to NOA, National Orientation Agency, and I was
Hello. Hello, Miss Blessing. Hello. We can't hear you.
They ensure that people in our communities are reached at this particular point in time. You know, they have this kind of communal living. They live together, so they feel like, oh, there's nothing like Corona. And I think that was what happened in Oshun for a very long time. And I think some parts sharing some parts we have, eye cases at a particular point in to ensure that relevant agencies of government, even individuals, and like it was rightly mentioned earlier, I don't know which of the speakers mentioned it, this is the time for parents also to take responsibility. Yeah. And I think I want to get his name, Edu Planner, Mr. Ogunwale. Yes. He was saying that, okay, it should be the responsibility of mothers to go to schools, follow their children to schools and see what's happening at this point in time. Yeah. But it's not just mothers only, even if the fathers are opportune to, they should also, because if their child should be infected, if they're not applying or maintaining safety precautions, when the children are infected, they will come to the home. Everybody in the house will be infected, and we know the implication. It means that at least one part of the household is going to be affected. So while the government is doing its own, while the media is doing its own, the responsibility, the action, the person who's going to take the key action is the parents and the children at this particular point in time. The government can only say their own. The media can only say their own. And they can only say their own. But it's quite important. And I don't know if I can chip this in. Regarding learners with disabilities, we have children with learning.
Okay, if you can do that within 1 minute, we appreciate that. It's already late, so we want to conclude section.
I didn't get that. What did you say?
You can do that within 1 minute, 60 seconds, please, so we can round up.
Okay, regarding learners with disabilities, I could barely hear you, but I hope you're hearing me. Regarding learners with disabilities, we know they have different specific needs. Imagine someone who is blind going to school, who cannot walk, who needs someone to aid him or her at that particular point in time, and you're saying don't touch your hands. How can that kind of a person cope in the school? Someone who touches, those who are blind, they need to touch to be able to read. How do they cope at those particular points in time? Those who are physically challenged, that they need to use their guide cane or walking aid or their wheelchair to go to school, they need somebody to wheel them, and they need, you don't know if the person has been affected, is the person wheeling the chair at that particular point in time. So all of those things need to be put in place. We need to focus on the general categories. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is very sure that we will need to actually continue this conversation. As you can see, we have a lot to talk about as to prepare the young people for learning and resumption. And thank you, Mr. Matthew Afemi Adedoyin. Thank you, Mr. Oriyomi Ogunwale and Ms. Blessing. Thank you very much. We've learned so much from you guys. And I really believe that when we call you next time, you will definitely give us a yes. Thank you very much. We appreciate
absolutely.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Have a nice time. Yeah.
Have a nice day. Thank you very much. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Mr. Matthew. Yeah, Mr. Matthew.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Very much.
God bless you so very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Thank you.